my name is Soleil and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since we've chatted, so I feel like the best way forward, both for wrapping up 2024 and starting 2025, is doing a tier ranking of all of the books that I read in the past year. I will also be doing the same thing for movies in a separate video, but this is just focused on books. And I read, I think it was 31 books last year. So let's discuss. So I have opted for 5 separate categories for this tier ranking. First up is literary masterpiece. This is the equivalent of a 5-star read. This is basically like a new favorite, something that I was really immersed in, that I was just loving, that I gobbled up, and just literary masterpiece. It explains itself. Then we have fantastic. So this is a book that was like truly, like, it was a fantastic book. Like, it was good, but it wasn't a new favorite. Maybe it took me a little while to get into, maybe it has something else going on, but it was still fantastic. Then we have a solid book. It did the thing. So it was a book, I read it, I enjoyed it. It had some things maybe I didn't dig, maybe it took me a really long time to read and I just wasn't really invested in the story, but like, it's solid. Like, I would still recommend this to people. Maybe it just wasn't for me personally, or it had something that I just personally wasn't really interested in, but a solid book nonetheless. Then we have, it has something, but nothing for me. So this is the equivalent of like a 2-star book. Like, it wasn't for me. It had some problems. Maybe it had a lot of promise, but it needed a lot more editing, a lot more work, or there were just some weird decisions made. And like, it could be for someone, but just not for me. And then we have waste of my time and should have DNF'd. This is a book where I fought to make it to the finish line. Most cases I will DNF a book, unless it's like feeling kind of like, it's got something, and I'm like interested to see what happens next, interested to see how it ends, and I'm like over a certain percentage, then I will sometimes fight my way to the finish line and then live with the regret, because sometimes I have like, it's sunken cost fallacy, where I have invested so much time that I feel like I need to make it to the end. So those are the 5 tiers that we'll be ranking these 31 books on. And without further ado, let's get into the tier ranking. So I've got my coffee. I hope you've got yours. Let's discuss some books. So first off, and these aren't in the order that I read them in. I just downloaded all the book covers, popped them into the tier ranking situation. So we're just going to go into whatever order these are in. First of all, we have Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I really enjoyed this book. I love Silvia Moreno Garcia's work. I own most of her books. No, honestly, I don't. I own maybe half of them. I want to read a lot more of hers. And this one for me goes into fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was such an interesting plot. It had so many things going on. But there were moments where I just didn't really connect with the characters as much as I wanted to. There were moments where the plot was kind of dragging a little bit, but like, nonetheless, fantastic book. Really enjoyed it. Then we have Educated by Tara Westover. So funny story, I actually started reading this in 2020, or was it 2021? No, it was 2021, because that was when I was moving out of my old apartment in Washington State on the West Coast, and I basically listened to almost all of this on audiobook, and then I was done moving. I only had like 4 chapters left, and I just never finished it because the audiobook, what's it called? Loan expired, and then it took forever for me to get the loan again, and then at that point I was reading other things. Anyway, so I realized I had never finished this book, and I was really enjoying it, and I wanted to finish it, so I finished that this year. I read the last 4 chapters. And honestly, a literary masterpiece. This book was fantastic. It was beautifully written. It's a true story. It's a memoir, which just makes it so much more compelling. Next, we have Someone Who Will Love You in All of Your Damaged Glory. This is a collection of short stories written by Raphael Bob. Honestly, that's too small for me to read. Either way, Raphael is the creator or writer, one of the two, maybe both, of BoJack Horseman. So this is kind of like a really weird collection of funny short stories. Honestly, I really enjoyed a lot of them. Not all of them. Short story collections are always an absolute mashup for me. This was a solid book. It did the thing. I enjoyed it. I need to zoom out. This is getting way too... Hang on. How do I do this? Look at that. We can see so much more. Okay. Next, I read Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Love Stephanie Garber's work. Have read, I think, every single other book written by Stephanie Garber besides for this series, which I finally read. Shout out to my friend LB. LB has been pushing me to read this for a very long time, and I've been meaning to read it, but I'm also not really interested or reading young adult literature anymore. So it took a little bit for me to pick it up. I did really enjoy it. It was a really good book. The main character annoyed me for the first half, and then I kind of began to understand her a little bit more towards the end. So this one was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Beautifully written. I just bought the second book in the series. Looking forward to keep reading it. Then we have Lessons in Chemistry by Barney Garmus. This is like a historical fiction that takes place... I'm bad at time eras. Maybe the 50s. Could be the 70s. It's unclear. Either way, this was a beautiful story. So well written. I still am like on episode 3 of the Apple TV series adaptation. So I really need to keep watching that because it's very good. And I was really enjoying it. And it was with Brie Larson. And Brie Larson's production company also is the producers of it, I think. So yeah, very good book. It's honestly, it dragged in some parts, so it wasn't a literary masterpiece, even though like it really had the potential. Just for me personally, it wasn't like a top favorite book. Then we have Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn in the Bridgerton series. I did not like this book. I really disliked it. It was grating at times. I really enjoyed the one before this. No, I enjoyed the second one. I enjoyed the second book. The Viscount Who Loved Me. Loved that one. I love her writing style and the world that she's created, but this one, I did not like the romance. I did not like all of the weird subplots. It felt like a waste of time. It felt like the story was already told within the first half of the book. Not for me. So this one, I think I actually technically rated it 3 stars, but retrospectively, it very much fits into the has something, but not for me category. Then we have God Killer. God Killer, I'm still not sure how I feel about it because I just didn't really sink into the story for at least the first half of it. And it's a very short book. It's like 200 something pages. But it felt so long to me and I just wasn't connecting to the characters. But the world is beautiful. The characters are really cool. The whole plot is really interesting. I've heard the second one might not be as good. So honestly, I'm kind of on the edge with reading the second one. But I want to read the second one, so I probably will. But this one, honestly, solid book. It did the thing. It was dragging for me. Then we have To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monoquill Blackgoose. So this was a pick for the Dragons and Draconathon book club that I and one of my best friends, Jade from Jade Juniper, run. You can join us on Fable. All of the information is linked down below. But this was one of our first book club picks for the book club. And when we hosted Draconathon in August, we read dragon books all month long. And now we have book club. This book is fantastic. Like, let's be honest, the plot is so interesting. It's not like anything I've read before. It's basically a dragon academy in like a way of sorts. Like, people who go to this place are learning how to take care of their dragons and to later ride their dragons. It's young adult, kind of. Like, it's more of an adult book, but the characters are younger in the beginning because they're starting off like this like academy. And it also really integrates the conversation of colonization and about the colonizers having this idea and perspective that they know how everything is done and they do everything the right way, even though the indigenous groups on this area, which is very much inspired by North America, and the indigenous peoples have been riding and living with dragons for centuries, and the colonizers aren't listening to anything that they're telling them about dragons. And it just combines that whole like world and all of those themes so well with also fantasy Dragon Academy, and it's just such an amazing story. And it is book 1 of a series, and I cannot wait for the next one. So this one is fantastic. I wish it was literary masterpiece tier for me. It almost is, but it's purely because it's a young adult, and I just couldn't connect with like the younger perspective in the book, which is purely a fault of mine. Like, I just don't connect with young adult literature as much anymore, and like it's annoying because then I just think that the youths are being annoying in the book, and it's not their fault because they're teenagers and they're learning and it's a part of the process and we've all been there. But I can't read from that mindset anymore. It is what it is. Okay. I drink way too much coffee. Okay. Next up, we have Dolls of Our Lives. This is a nonfiction. It is about American Girl doll and how American Girl dolls have shaped culture and were shaped by mostly American Western-centric culture. I thought it would be a lot more interesting than I found it. I never personally had an American Girl doll. I just never, like, all of my friends had one, but they were so expensive, so I never wanted to ask for one, but also I just never really wanted one. So I just personally don't have that connection myself with American Girl doll, but I loved playing with dolls and toys when I was younger, so I thought that would be an interesting perspective, and just learning more about how the intersection with American culture kind of overlapped with the dolls. And also, American Girl doll is very well known for kind of having diverse dolls, but also integrating those dolls' histories and backstories. Most of them very depressing, but very kind of realistic, but not really with the dolls. So it talked a lot about that and had a lot of conversations about that, and then also about like queer identity in dolls. Anyways, I just had higher expectations of this. It sounded so interesting, and I thought it would be a really interesting conversation about culture and identity, and it just wasn't. So this one, well, I rated it 3 stars, so that makes me feel like I should do solid book. It did the thing, but it wasn't really, so I think it's more of a it has something, but nothing for me. Because it does have something, but it just wasn't for me. Then we have The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. Loved this book. Absolutely loved this book. One of my favorite books of this year. It's about a fantastical creature zoology keeper, like zookeeper, and she's a phoenix keeper. She has anxiety and she's bi, and it's just a great cozy fantasy story. Takes place with a bunch of amazing fantasy creatures, but then also is just a story about a woman who is trying to make it in her career, who is really driven, and who also just is trying to find herself and find love. Great story. Loved it. Gobbled this up. Also, gorgeous cover. I'm just gonna say it. Gorgeous cover. Then we have The Age of Magical Overthinking by Amanda Montell. I read Amanda Montell's book Cultish last year? Or the year before. I think it was last year. This one I enjoyed so much more. This one was fascinating. It looked at, it's so hard to describe, honestly. I don't know why I keep trying to do it. But it looked at how there are all of these different ways in society that we overthink things, and different areas and concepts. But like, it looks at society and culture through that lens of overthinking. So it's not really like, but it is mental, but it's not. So for instance, us putting so much weight on celebrities and their lives is one whole section. And now I'm forgetting every other section. So the moral of the story is you just need to read it, because this one was a literary masterpiece. No, was it? No, it was fantastic. Let's say it was fantastic. Was it a literary masterpiece? We're gonna keep it at fantastic. Maybe I'll change my mind. Fantastic book. Really enjoyed it. Then we have Emily Henry's Funny Story. I've read every single book by Emily Henry. I love Emily Henry. Probably heard of Emily Henry. She writes romantic comedies, but there's usually other stuff going on, which I love. It's not just happy-go-lucky, here's a romance. There's also deeper things happening at the same time. So this one starts off with two different people who were just broken up with, and both of their exes got together. So they're kind of in similar situations of loss and mourning of their relationships, and they decide to become roommates, and possible romance ensues. Great story, amazing, loved it. I rated it 5 stars, really enjoyed it. However, compared to other stories by Emily Henry, I have enjoyed other ones by Emily Henry more, but it still earns the title of literary masterpiece because I consumed this. It really hit hard. I thought it was beautifully done, and just the town that it all happens in felt so real and so cozy and honest, and it was lovely. Then we have Return of Great Powers by Jim Scioto. I don't know if I should put this on the list, but I read the book, so it's going on the list. I read this book for work and had to write like a summary for my boss for it. And this is a nonfiction book. It's looking at US and Russia, and then also looking at China and Taiwan, and looking at how we got to where we are with Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So really well done, very well written book. It's hard to rate this kind of nonfiction, especially if you had to read it for work. I would say it was very well written. I'm gonna put it at solid book. It did the thing. It contained a lot of interesting information. I think it might have missed some things that could have been interesting to include in the book. It came out right when I read it, so it was very timely then, and you could tell that there were still some things that were updated like right before publication. Personally, I wouldn't rate it as fantastic. I don't think it came to any life-changing conclusions that aren't already well known in my field. So, solid book. It did the thing. Then we have Abby Jimenez, Just for the Summer. Loved this one. Have also read every book and short story by Abby Jimenez. She does a similar thing to Emily Henry, in which she writes these beautiful romances, but there's also something deeper going on at that same time. In this one, the main character is a traveling nurse with her best friend, and they decide to go to Wisconsin? Unclear. They decide to go to a state in the United States and basically take up like a 3-month contract there, and she starts dating a guy. But she's also dealing with this complicated history with her mother. Her mother wasn't always really around. Her mom always kind of flits in and out of her life, is unreliable, and just shows up when she needs something or needs money. She's dealing with that, and she doesn't have a lot of other family connections that she knows of. So there's kind of that baggage that she's dealing with at the same time as like dating someone in a place that she considers temporary. So beautifully done story, literary masterpiece. Not my favorite book by Abby Jimenez, but doesn't change that it was fantastic and I loved it and it was so well done. Then we have Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. Loved this book. Was looking forward to reading this book and hit it out of the park. She also kind of does something similar to Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez. You can tell that I have a theme of certain kind of romances that I like, and I just really enjoy it when a romance isn't fluffy sunshines and rainbows. It's more realistic and it complements real life, and it has all of the weird, random strange moments of life and all of the like shit that we have to deal with, along with a lovely story of romance. So this one, it is dealing with, then this is the entire plot, so this is not a spoiler, but it is dealing with an accidental pregnancy, so just be aware of that going in. And she decides to keep the baby. That is the entire plot of the book, so that is not a spoiler. But she decides to keep the baby and decides to try to make it work with the man that she had the baby with. Both of them have a disability, so both of them are also kind of having these conversations about what it will be like to be a parent while also having a disability. And it just is such a lovely romance and is such a lovely story of these two people like trying to make something work and really putting in time and effort, but also like they're just lovely humans. So like it's just a beautiful story. Anyways, out on a limb, literary masterpiece, loved it. Then we have a short story by Abby Jimenez, which is Worst Wingman Ever. This is like 30 pages. This book had more plot and more things going on than some 500, 600 page tomes that I have read. Like, this had more world building than some fantasy worlds that I've read. Just saying. This book, honestly, literary masterpiece. I'm not gonna apologize for it. It's fantastic. It's 30 pages long. It's great. It starts off with, I think the main guy is a maintenance man or a cleaner, or somehow he works in this like retirement home, I think, or like caretaker home. And there's a young woman who is I'm not sure what the word for it is, it like a home nurse, and she's a home nurse to, I think, her grandma or maybe her great aunt is a family relation of hers who is older and is dealing with health problems. So she's like that family nurse and she comes there every day, and she has some car troubles, and I'm not going to spoil this 30-page story for you, but they end up making a connection and it's beautiful. I loved it. Then we have Pole Position by Rebecca J. Does that say Caffrey? I don't know. You'll have to look it up to find out. I didn't jive with this one. This is a Formula One romance that I read with my Formula One romance book club. F1 The Romantics, like for the romantics. Get it? It's funny, right? Okay, you can join us down below. It's a good time. It's a good time. Formula One romances. Love them. Didn't love this one. This is a queer romance between two Formula One drivers on the same team that have to, oh no, my camera light is flashing. Great. That have to team up. One of them is a rookie and the other one is like a seasoned Formula One driver. There's kind of an age gap and they hate each other and it's enemies to lovers, and I don't think they have chemistry. And it flips from them hating each other to suddenly like being with each other so fast, and it feels like whiplash, and I did not get the romance. And this one had so much potential, and it was so long. It was like 400 pages long, and it did not have to be. It kept dragging on, and I was just so annoyed at the characters, and I only finished it because of book club. So it goes into Ed has something, but nothing for me, because truly, like, it did have some things. Formula One romance, love. It didn't have a lot about actual Formula One, like, mechanics, you know, like, the reason I read Formula One romances is one, because romance, but two, because Formula One, and I love Formula One. So, like, obviously there was a lot of discussion about Formula One, but there are other Formula One romances that discuss the actual racing more, that I dig more. And this was more just like, oh yeah, that's their career, whatever, let's talk about them. And that wasn't for me. All right, continuing on, we have The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ally Carter. This was one of the last books that I read this year. It was the book club pick for the Romantics book club, which is my romance themed book club. Yes, I have a lot of book clubs. Don't worry about it, because I'm certainly not. It's fine. Anyways, so this is like a cozy murder mystery romance taking place in England, where these two writers, one writes, they're both kind of like murder mystery writers. One is slightly different. I don't remember what the difference was. It's not really important. They're both invited to the like estate of the most well-known and most published murder mystery author of their universe. And suddenly the author goes missing. So the whole story is this budding romance between these two characters, but then also them trying to figure out what happened. And you kind of learn more about what's going on between the two of them, because you don't know a lot about their history. There's kind of like an animosity between them a little bit. So a good book, honestly. Actually, now I'm torn. Now I'm not sure if it is a solid book, it did the thing, or if it's fantastic. Because it is a solid book, it did the thing. I don't know if it's fantastic. It's not a literary masterpiece. It was a good book though. This is hard. If I compare it to, no, this is the problem, because it's not on the same level as all of the other books I've listed under fantastic, but it's definitely miles above a solid book. It did the thing. I'm going to put it under fantastic because it doesn't deserve the lower tier. I will say that much. Okay. Now we have Next to You by Hannah Bonham Young. This was also a book for the Romantics Book Club, and this is by the same author who wrote Out on a Limb. I did not enjoy this book as much as I enjoyed Out on a Limb. This was Hannah Bonham Young's previous work? Yes, I think they wrote this before Out on a Limb. It's about a chaotic young bisexual woman who decides to renovate a school bus to be her home. Sounds fantastic, I know, that's what hooked me. But there's not a lot of focus on the actual renovation process of the school bus, which I was kind of hoping for because that sounds rad as hell and that sounds awesome. And there's like a lot of other things going on as well, which is why there's not as much focus on that. And she's reconnecting with some of her family members at some point, and there's like a whole subplot. And it's this romance between her and a man who works in the mechanic shop, I think. Either way, it was a solid book. It did the thing. It wasn't fantastic. I didn't feel really connected to their romance. It was cute. It just wasn't, it was just missing something, you know? Next we have The Situationship by Abby Jimenez, another short story by Abby Jimenez. This one was actually, it was a bonus chapter in one of the exclusive editions of, it wasn't Part of Your World. It was the one that came after. Oh, I can see the cover of it. I can't remember the name. Either way, it's a very short story that introduces a slight romance between two characters. I have no idea if this romance will actually be the topic of one of her future books. I don't think so. I think it was just a cute, funny story, and it involves a pig named Kevin Bacon and a rancher farm man who's also just very sensitive. Ugh, love to see it. And the best friend of one of the main characters of one of Abby Jimenez's other stories. Also, like, this one was fantastic. Maybe it was a literary masterpiece, I don't know. Was the other one a literary masterpiece? Now I'm not sure. Maybe this one was a literary masterpiece and the other one wasn't. This is so hard. This is so hard judging short stories. I'm just gonna leave it there. This one, honestly, it felt like less of a story of romance than Worst Wingman Ever. This one was a lot shorter, and it was amazing. It was so good. It was literally fantastic, but it didn't show as much story as Worst Wingman Ever. Next we have Inanna, and you never would have guessed it. This was a book club pick for my book club, The Mythologists. I host 4 book clubs. I don't know why. I have varying interests and I like discussing books with other people, and it's just really nice to discuss them in an environment with a book club. Also, it really helps me read books that I really want to read, but I'm just like, But like I know for most of them, I'm quite sure that I'm going to enjoy them and I'm really excited to read them, but it takes the extra push of motivation to actually do it. And having them as a book club pick for a book club that I run were really motivating. I'm like, I can't let the people down. I've picked this as a book club pick. I must read it. Anyways, this is a mythology retelling of Sumerian mythology and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Fantastic, amazing, so well done, so well written, so interesting. I know the very basics of Sumerian mythology and the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh is widely known as possibly being the oldest story that we know of. Doesn't mean that it necessarily is, but many people regard it as one of the oldest stories that we know of. I think it was like, oh, I'm not going to throw out a number. I'm not going to throw out a number. It's definitely before Common Era. It's BCE. I think it's more than 2000. I think it's more than 2000 BCE. I think it was longer, I think it was longer before then. As I've already said, I'm not good with time periods, so you can research that on your own. Anyways, so this has 3 main point of views. It has Gilgamesh, it has Inanna, who is the goddess of love and war, and she later inspired the Greek goddess Aphrodite, as well as the Roman goddess Venus, and there was one more goddess. Egyptian? Maybe the Egyptian goddess. Oh, her name also starts with an I and I can't remember it. Anyways, huge inspiration. And then there's a third character who's fascinating, and a lot of it is based off of this original tale of the Epic of Gilgamesh, but a lot of it is also just created by the author Emily H. Wilson, because there are minimal scraps remaining of this story and of this mythology. So she took a lot of creative liberties and she did well with it. This was a literary masterpiece. The sequel just came out. Amazing timing. It's called Gilgamesh. I'm looking forward to reading it. Next we have Fear the Flames by Olivia something. I hated this book. I hated this book with a fiery passion. I'm so sorry, Olivia. This was most definitely a waste of time and I should have DNF'd it, but it was a book club pick. It was a book club pick for Dragons and Draconathon, and I was just hoping it would get better and I was curious how it would end. It was about a young woman where when she was younger, she was chosen by these dragons and she's basically mother to these dragons. Very much Game of Thrones inspired in this way. And her father was afraid of her because of an incident that happened, so he locked her up, and then later she escaped. And then the story starts off from when she's a young woman and she's trying to reclaim her dragons and her empire. And my god, it was terrible. Oh my god, it was just cringy and it felt like there were just large plot bits that were missing. A lot of it didn't make sense. Oh god, there were quotes that I would send to my friends where I was like, what is this? And they were like, what are you reading? And I'm like, I don't know. And at some point I was just hate reading it, which I do not like to do. I do not like hate reading because I don't think that's fair to the book. I don't think that's fair to me or the author. But this book was originally like 900 pages long, and it was self-published, and then it was picked up and now it's like 300 pages. So I'm like, what did they cut? What did they cut from this 900 page book? Because I'm like, maybe that's why it doesn't make any sense. Maybe there's plot points completely missing. I'm like, did someone read this thing through? I don't know. A lot of people loved it, so like I could put it at it. It has something but nothing for me. But no, it was a waste of my time and I should have DNF'd it, and it gave me rage. Also, there were just scenes that did not make sense. Anyways, on to brighter things. I read The Solstice Court by Jade Juniper, who I will give a disclaimer, Jade is one of my best friends of all time. So I might have been a little bit biased going into this. However, coming out of it, if you have read this book, you know that me saying it is a literary masterpiece, there is no bias there because it simply is. Like, read the book and try to prove me wrong. Don't do that. That would be mean. But it was fantastic. It takes place in this world of 3 kingdoms. It's the Thrice Kingdoms, and there is a war going on between 2 of them, and there's a whole complicated like family backstory there that is just so intricate and beautiful. Anyways, so then the 3rd kingdom is neutral, and the main character is the like reborn soul heir of this kingdom. And there's all of this like really interesting, intricate magic system where there's different like magic systems for these different kingdoms, and they work in different ways. And it's a cozy fantasy that kind of goes through the lives of this main character and then also the heirs of these other kingdoms that she has to be neutral with. And there is a like queer platonic romance, and there's just all these amazing like queer relationships, and it is just a beautiful story. And even if my best friend didn't write it, it would still be a literary masterpiece. Go read it. It's fantastic. Then we have Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. This was you wouldn't believe it, book club pick for the Mythologists. Yes, this was based off of Indian mythology, I believe, and it was based off of the Goddess of the River and her story. And it deals with a lot of heavy themes, especially death of children, and go look at the trigger warnings because there's a lot of darker things going on in this because it is an older tale, and a lot of these older tales deal with gods and dark things happen. This was a well done story. I knew absolutely nothing about this mythology or this goddess beforehand. I think the plot was handled well, but it was very slow, and it occurred over thousands of years. So it makes sense that the plot was slow. It had to really build up this story. But for me personally, it took some time to connect with some of the other characters. I felt like we were really removed from the story, which I think was purposefully done as it was a myth retelling, but I prefer to feel like I'm really more immersed in the story and I can really understand and see the characters. So for me, honestly, solid book. It did the thing. Great story. I just wish I had felt more of who these characters were. Then we have Babel or Babel. It's unknown, nobody knows, by R.F. Kuang. I wanted to love this book, and there were amazing parts of this book, but again, I felt disconnected to the story and to the characters. I felt like the characters didn't really have personalities, they just had motivations, and they felt a little one-sided in just who they were. It was a bummer because the concept and the plot of this book was fascinating. It is about how language can be a weapon and a magic system, and it is so linguistically vibrant, and having studied linguistics, that was amazing and fascinating. And it talked about colonization and the power of Western countries who tried to oppress these other societies with their wealth and their knowledge and tried to take speakers of these other countries to them. And it takes place in, I think, England, or at least the United Kingdom, and right at Oxford, right? Yeah, I think so. And taking these children from other countries in order to gain this linguistic advantage, and had so many interesting themes and conversations, and I wanted to love it. It's just, I felt like the characters were just so bland and kept on like discussing their motivations and their plots and what they were seeking, and they just felt like all like there was nothing going on in there. Ugh, it was such a bummer. Anyways, so I put it at a solid book. It did the thing. I wish I had enjoyed it more, but so many people enjoyed it and so many people absolutely love it. So this could just be a me situation. Then I read Done and Dusted for the Romantics Book Club. Honestly, at this point, I should just put something on the screen if it's a book club pick. Like, that should be enough. I did not like this one. It had something, but nothing for me. This one was just, it gave me the ick. I did not like the romance. It was just not for me how it was told, and I didn't get the connection between the characters. I didn't care for it. There were a lot of parts that just, not for me. Then I read Son of Blood and Ruin. This was a mythology book club pick, Mythologist book club pick. This book takes place in 16th century New Spain and really focuses on Mesoamerican mythology, and it sounded so cool. And the execution was so bad. Like, the plot made no sense. It was all over the place. There was a romance like 60 pages before the end of the book that had absolutely nothing leading up to it, and it was like a weird triangle romance that made no sense. There was this whole section at the end with a battle that came out of left field, and it was all over the place, and it was just, honestly, I should have DNF'd it. It was not for me. It sounded so cool, and it was about like a vigilante warrior who was part of the court who was trying to take it down from the inside, and they had like this whole connection to the pantheon of gods in this way, and it sounded so cool, and it was so poorly executed. It was such a bummer. Then the next two are Formula One romances for the Formula One book club, and the first one, A Man's World, it fell a little flat for me. I really enjoyed it at the beginning, but this was like a 450 page book for a Formula One romance, and it just kept going and going, and it was about a Formula One female driver, and she was like one of the first female drivers in Formula One in this world, and how she had to combat against like these negative stereotypes and how she was judged unfairly compared to the male drivers. All very fair, but it just kept dragging, and it took forever, and it was it has something, but I don't know if it has nothing for me. I would say, you know what, I would say it's a solid book. It did the thing, missing some things in my point of view. Then Cross the Line by Simone Soltani. I did enjoy this one. This was about a social media manager in Formula One and a race car driver. I really enjoyed both of their personalities and how they meshed together. It was really cute. It was fun. It wasn't too long, but it felt like there were some random plot bits kind of scattered around, and I really enjoyed how the author brought in both of the characters' cultures into who they were as people and how they connected with each other. That was really well done, and it was solid. It was a good book. It wasn't fantastic for me. I really enjoyed it and I had a good time, but I didn't feel myself like gobbling it up and consuming it and like really, really enjoying it. Like, it is right on the line of fantastic, but I feel like it just doesn't make it there. Then I read The Last Phi Hunter. Really loved this book. This was a dragon book that I read for Draconathon. Really enjoyed how this hunter of these Phi creatures, which are kind of draconic like creatures, how this person was entering the world. This one also has a lot of content and trigger warnings, so definitely check those out. There were some really interesting main characters, and the main character ended up going on this big quest, and it was just so well written and beautifully done, and it really brought in some really interesting Thai culture as well into the mythology of these creatures. So cool. Loved it. Literary masterpiece. Last book we have is Masquerade by Oo Sanyomi, and this one was a retelling of the myth of Persephone, but then in, was it 15th century? I think so, maybe. Somewhere between 15th and 17th century, let's say. West Africa, with a lot of inspirations of Nigeria and like the past and history and culture of Nigeria, but taking place in not a completely fantasy world. It is definitely very much grounded in our world and the history of West Africa, but with fantasy elements kind of scattered throughout. And it was really interesting how the author paired the myth of Persephone with these themes of war and love and being taken from your home and these kingdoms in West Africa, and how all of that came together and interplayed. Very well done. There were some parts where I felt like the main character's motivations were a little wonky, I felt like they didn't have as much backing them up, and it was interesting. It was well done. Honestly, it's a solid book. It did the thing. There were moments that kind of took me out, but the story and the plotting of it was so well done and so interesting. So I definitely highly recommend that one. So those were all of the books that I read in 2024 and how I feel about them. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you agree with my ratings. If you completely disagree, that is perfectly fine. We all have different opinions and different things that we like to read. So let me know what one of your favorite books of this past year was, and if I haven't read it, I would love to check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.